1 week season, fam, La Familia. Welcome back. DFS Labs, Fanduel edition, week 16. We have 3 weeks of the regular season left. Apologies, we were not with you last week. I live in Wisconsin. You can see the mountains in the background. Those are not where I live. But we were hammered by about 1.5 feet of snow on Tuesday night into Wednesday. So had the kids at home, had a lot of shoveling to do. Wife got stuck on the road. Kids were done home from school, but she is a teacher in a different school district that still had school somehow. Anyways, I'm digressing. Apologies, we weren't able to make it work schedule-wise last week, but we are back with you for Week 16. Playoff races are heating up. We have a little bit smaller slate once again as we have Saturday games. We have several of these games have big playoff implications, but we've also got some teams who are trying to set the tone for next year. We are not, these teams, they're not just playing out the string. They are evaluating coaches, players, schemes, etc. Players still have incentives to play for, next contracts to play for. There's a lot going on. We've got to stay on top of it all, and that's what we're here for. So with that said, bring back my esteemed colleague who I ghosted last week, Maximus. How are we doing?
Hello, my friend. He's still shoveling snow, guys, as of this morning.
I actually was up on a ladder because now it's like 40. So I'm trying to prevent like an ice dam from forming in these gutters. So the battle continues here. Hopefully, maybe I'll win the Millie this week and then I can move somewhere warm.
There you go. Come on down my way. Coming off a week, I had a sweat going on in my 5-entry max. I was in third place until really late and got bounced out of the top 10 at the very end there, but 11th place showing, not bad. I'm also happy on a different note. Got my drafters shirt finally. It only took the end of the season to get it, but better late than never, as that's starting to wind down, of course, for us that do the drafter stuff. And it looks like our last slate with 11 games, somewhat of a last regular slate of games number-wise, and it's amazing. It's we got a couple more shots here to make some magic happen. So looking forward to it, digging in, catching up with you this week.
Yeah, it actually, the way it plays out, so we've got the 2 games this week on Saturday, but then week 17 next week, obviously Christmas is Thursday. There's 3 games that day and 2 games on Saturday. So we're going to have another, it'll actually be an even smaller slate. I believe it's only 9 games on week 17. And then week 18, we get the massive, everybody plays 15 game slate. So it's, there's a lot of different dynamics, like as the slate size changes too. So we've got 11 this week. The player pool is going to condense so much. We had 13 last week. So now we cut 2 games off. We're making it smaller this week. It's going to be even smaller next week. So you look at it from week 15 with 13 games to next week with 9 games, just completely different dynamics. You're cutting the player pool and all of it down by 1/3 basically. And then you're almost going to double it from week 17 to 18. You go from 9 to 15 games. So there's a lot of dynamics there in terms of how you need to evaluate the slate, what you need to be targeting, what you need to be thinking about. And then obviously all the team dynamics and whatnot. So it's kind of a fun time of season. And then, there's just for all of us, myself included, obviously I've got storm going on, but was going on, but holidays and whatnot, there's, that definitely, in my opinion, affects the overall field performance that we see. Some people, I think, probably get a little more reliant on the optos and the sims and not maybe putting in as much of their putting in the dirty work, I guess you could say. I think there's a lot to get into these last 3 weeks. It's fun stuff. So hopefully we can help people. Again, check us out, 1 week season. You can get right now, if you use code OWS65, it is 65% off the rest of season price. That takes you all the way through the Super Bowl. There still is a lot of football left. There is 3 regular season weeks. 3 playoff weeks and then the Super Bowl, as well as the Bink Machine is $39 for the rest of the season. We have Sims with that. That's an additional add-on. But, if you're looking for an optimizer to try out and get familiar with, $39 for 7 weeks, not a bad deal. And like I said, 65% off our full season products gets you the last 7 weeks and gives you a taste of what we do heading into 2026 season. So with that said, I want to quickly shout out, let me share my screen. The week 15, the bottom up build, we did still have the bottom up build last week. The winner last week was longtime user Paul Morrison, 87. He had a Brock Purdy double stack. Purdy at only 6% ownership with Jawan Jennings and George Kittle. Played nicely there. And then he had Travion Henderson and Jamison Williams as some high ceiling plays that he was able to fit in around everything else. Again, the salary cap there, as you can see, leave $5,500 in salary. So it forces you to kind of build from the bottom up, as the name implies, thinking about floor and ceiling combinations from a value perspective. And it does a nice job of helping you kind of build from there. And I do this a lot of weeks. I'll take my bottom up build, and then in a regular contest, I'll put that roster in and then adjust and spend that remaining salary. While we're up on the page, I'll share, I did play in the Fanduel Championship, $250 entry, 10,000 people. It was $1 million to first. Very top heavy payout. Obviously know what I'm getting into, but I did cash 3 of the 5 entries. I played Woody Marks on all 5 entries. Tough run out there with the injury. Got kind of lucky. He had that fumble recovery, weird touchdown before he went out. I played Travion Henderson on one of my teams, had Travis Etienne on 2 of them. So really, the Marks, I like the Marks play, but also in general, I was pretty high on Etienne and Henderson, and probably would have played them each on like 3, maybe 4 of the teams if I hadn't been so high on Marks. So still a good showing, but didn't get the big money, but I've got enough to maybe take some swings if they post another cool contest down the stretch. With that, we will go to week 16, and Maximus, I'll let you take the wheel here. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, I didn't see that they were doing that tournament this week. It's not yet, right?
They're not doing it this week for 16. I'm saying for, sometimes week 17 or 18, they'll drop something bigger.
Gotcha. That'd be a crapshoot week 18. But all right. Well, 11 games on the slate. Prior to coming on with you, I'd actually built a team where I was able to access players from 3 different game environments that I'm steering towards, at least at this point in the week, and kind of doing some research and stuff. But I'll start with one of the routes and then pass it on to you where you may want to take it. So, there's a couple games where it's heavy playoff implication. I think there's one game that's looking good with no playoff implications, but just the way the teams have been operating. It's been a lot of ceiling scenarios with those 2 teams. But I'm going to go ahead and start kind of volatile. Definitely with a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde quarterback, but he's on a team I don't think we've built around this season, and they are playing literally, not figuratively, for their division. Let's go ahead, and also price considered, and let's start with Bryce Young of the Carolina Panthers at 6,600. Good FanDuel price he does have ceiling. He's definitely had some big games this year. He's also had some games that I've considered head scratchers, but he is going up against a pass funnel defense in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who definitely haven't looked that great over the last month. Carolina kind of losing a rough one in the last minute to the Saints, another divisional situation last week. But back at home this week, division still on the line for them, or theirs for the taking, so to speak. I want to go ahead and double stack him, because I think the only way to access his ceiling would probably be to double stack him. And let's go ahead and plug in Tetaroa McMillan, the great rookie who they don't seem to be kind of a square peg into a circle at times with his connection or chemistry with Bryce Young, but he still has the ceiling. And then I want to go ahead and add Jalen Coker to this offense at only 5,900. Since Coker has kind of been back in the mix, he's seeming to, I don't know if usurp would be the right word with Tet, but he's definitely becoming a security blanket for Bryce Young. They seem to have a connection. He has been very active the last couple weeks. And, of course, Tet still has the touchdowns, which ceiling and potential in that offense. And then I want to bring it back, and this is maybe on the face of it kind of thin, but, again, a price-considered play for me. And also, when you really dig into the numbers of what he's done the last couple of weeks, I think he's looking really good, albeit with the Buccaneers having their full receiver core back. Let's go ahead and plug in Chris Godwin at 5,800. Very good Fanduel price. He's actually accumulated 9 receptions over his last 2 games. He does have a receiving touchdown in that span as well. I think he's looking, more back to his regular self coming back from the recovery of the injury. And this way you kind of have your Bryce Young double stack. You got your Buck bring back. Obviously, it's building around this game. I think the game total is 45 and a half, something like that. So kind of middling. But, the division's on the line. I do think this could turn into a game where if you're seeing Bryce Young, the good Bryce Young, you definitely could have some ceiling potential here. Baker also has not looked that great. He's probably still trying to navigate through that injury that he sustained a little while back. But, always dangerous with back against the wall. And I want to start with this. It leaves a lot of salary based on what we choose for the defense. And in my initial build, kind of gives us access to 2 other games who I'm very interested in delving into to build around. But I will throw it back to you first to hear your thoughts on this. We can always go a completely different direction if you want, and let you take it from here.
You talked about the total, and yes, the total is 46, 24 and a half implied points for the Bucks, 21 and a half for the Panthers. So right now, as we record on Wednesday, it sits at 46, which seems about right. You talked about the Bucks. They have their defense has over their last, looking back at their game logs, they've allowed 29, 24, 17, 28, 44, 28, 3, and 24, 19, 35. I mean, so you're talking about the Saints scored 3. That was with Spencer Rattler. The 49ers struggled a little bit, only scored 19 against them. That was with Mac Jones. They had a bunch of other guys out as well. They were without several of their key wide receivers. And then the Cardinals scored 17 only when they met a couple weeks ago, but the Cardinals did have nearly 400 yards of offense. You look at from a yardage perspective too, they just gave up almost 500 yards to Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. They've given up over 400 yards in 3 of their last 6, and over 300 yards in every game except the Saints game. So, it's their defense has been giving, and so you've got this stack where, they're a bit of, their run defense is still solid. They've still been acting as they've just continued for years now to be more of a pass funnel. The Bucks don't want to go to the air, or the Panthers, but they kind of can be forced to the air. So, yeah, it's a nice kind of bet as a whole. You've got 4 guys, 2 of them, everybody's under 7K, 2 of them are under 6K. So, yeah, I think for a tournament perspective, there's they're not going to put up a game like Young, Tet, Coker. They're not going to match what like Goff, JMO, and ARSB did last week. But they don't have to. They don't have to do anything close to that. So I like it. While we're sitting here on defense, I'm going to plug in the Texans. Fanduel appears to have maxed out. They won't price any defense over 5K this year. In past years, they would sometimes. I think, the Texans defense has just been so good. They're on quite a winning streak right now. But they've only allowed, you look at their point totals, they've only allowed 2 teams over 20 points all season. The Jaguars scored 29 against them, actually. Their offense scored 23, but if you remember how that game started, there was a interception early in the game that gave the Jaguars the ball on the Texans 15, and they scored right away. And then Parker Washington had a punt return touchdown. So really from that perspective in that game, they essentially, they held the Jaguars under 20 as well. And then the Seahawks scored 27, but they've been very good offensively all year. So they've just been so dominant. And that Raiders offense was just atrocious last week against Philly, going on the road to Houston here, who's going to want to take care of business. They're still in the they're in the AFC playoff picture. If it started today, they've still got a chance at their division. You mentioned it before the show, team total of 12 points for Las Vegas, and that feels aggressive to even see them getting there. So basically where I'm going is I'm going to start basically every build with the Texans defense. And, as I make the build, then if I need the extra salary at the end, figure out how much salary that is, what option I'd have to go down to, and is the juice worth the squeeze coming down from it? Because it just feels like it's like a 12-point floor, it feels like, for the Texans there. And it could be like the Seahawks against Brosmer type of situation, I think. So, yeah, I like that a lot. Running back, I'll throw one running back in here, and then that'll leave us with a running back defense and a flex. I think I want to go with Javonte Williams here, 7,900, facing this charge. The Cowboys, they played Sunday night against the Vikings. Vikings have a pretty good defense, but Javonte had a nice game, 15 rushes, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Was giving up a little more work to Malik Davis this week, but I'm not too concerned about that. Really, the Chargers' run defense has kind of been shoddy all season. And I think they were talking on the broadcast about how the Cowboys they might end up being the only team that has allowed and scored at least 29 points in a game in a season since the 2000 Rams, I think it was. So it's pretty impressive statistics. So I think getting a piece of that game is pretty wise.
Yeah, I want to make sure I wasn't on mute. Yeah, real quick. Yeah, obviously the Texans defense, I've never seen a 12-point team total. That's just absolutely desecrating. I guess either with Pickett or Geno, I guess they're figuring probably a similar result. And, paying up for defense, always a good strategy on Fanduel. And then, Javonte Williams, I kind of was thinking about this game, but Herbert, you have the offensive line issues still, split backfield. Chargers have actually been a pretty underrated defense, I feel, but I think Javonte Williams probably would be the piece if you're going there to kind of steer towards with the looking at the running backs this week. And then we have three spots. We have a running back, a tight end, and a flex. So let me go ahead and do a strategy we tend to talk about periodically on OWS. Let's do a running back, same game for running back and flex based on who you have in there now. So let's go ahead and plug in Kenneth Gainwell at running back, $5,800. More so because of price. He tends to be tilting more in his favor right now in that Steeler backfield. I know Jalen Warren was dealing with an illness on Monday night, but you figure the Steelers are going to be trailing. He has been the pass-catching running back. I don't know if he's usurped necessarily, but he's just been he's just been utilized that way more by the Steelers. And then, so we'll go ahead and put Gainwell in at 5,800. Let's go ahead and put Jahmyr Gibbs in the flex. So we kind of have a unique way to access that game, which I also have interest in, actually through the running backs in this case. And of course, Jahmyr Gibbs, no introduction needed. A little bit on the quiet side against the Rams on the road last week. Typically, the very few spots where he hasn't had a ceiling outcome, the very next week, he does have a ceiling outcome. And of course, the Lions are fighting for their playoff lives. They're at home. I'm pretty confident he's going to be more involved this week. And then that leaves us a healthy total for tight end. And I'm actually steering towards Kyle Pitts there, which will leave us some salary. But obviously, for the Falcons, monitor Drake London. I think either way, though, Kyle Pitts, me and you, Mike, we probably two of the few people who don't turn our nose when we mention Kyle Pitts, even dating back to best ball. So now he's finally showing signs of his ceiling potential. Well, I'd say that's an understatement last week, of course. But, that's a game also, even though there's no playoff implications, could very well become a shootout there in Arizona. And so plugging him in leaves us with $700, which is always a nice speculative amount to see if we want to maybe tweak this lineup, maybe take a receiver off of Young and see if we want to go somewhere else and still have him stacked with one of his guys. But yeah, on the face of it, Gainwell's definitely been looking good. It is a split backfield, but I think it's tilting towards his favor. And I think the kind of game against Detroit, they're going to need they're going to need him more in that kind of a game setup, I would think. And then, of course, Gibbs having the salary to be able to include him is always a good thing, in my opinion. What says you?
Yeah, just kind of looking through here. I think, I don't mind the Gibbs play at all. Take a look here.
It's also a 4:00 game, so that's kind of good for your late swap possibilities. Not that you would swap off Gibbs probably, but with Pitts and with Gainwell and the $700, that's another way to look at it. Is you have some wiggle room in that 4:00 window based on how things are going with your 1:00 guys, etc.
Mm-hmm. You know what we could do?
Going in, my three games that I was definitely Pittsburgh, Detroit, Atlanta, Arizona, and that Tampa Bay, Carolina game. Obviously, two of them playoff implications all over the place, and then one of them just could be a good old-fashioned shootout in the desert with that pairing of Brissett, McBride, and Wilson just seemingly doing it every week. Obviously, more viable on DraftKings where the prices are so much different. Here on Fanduel, a little more price prohibitive based on where their prices are at now. But those are the three. I mean, there's obviously other spots that are that you can look to. I think the Jacksonville-Denver game is kind of sneaky, even though the perception is the stoutness of Denver's defense. I think Jacksonville's on the come up on the offensive side of the ball. And so there's some other spots to account for, but those three game environments, and we've encapsulated a good amount of it here, which I like where the build's going to this point.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at some things. So one thing that kind of stands out to me is with that Arizona-Atlanta game, Bam Knight was placed on season-ending injured reserve. The Cardinals running back situation. So last week, Knight hurt he played one snap, got hurt in the first play. Michael Carter ended up playing, I believe it was 53 out of 66 snaps the rest of the way. Really tough matchup they had against the Texans defense. We talked about how good they've been. But Carter was basically the feature back. He's used in the receiving game. So I like him a good bit. So if we were to move him in we can move him in off of Javonte. So going down in salary there, that gives us $2,500. So from there, what we can do is we now have 8,400 for a wide receiver if we take out Jalen Coker. Let me pull up. Here we go. So that gives us a variety of options. Kind of the thing that stands out to me would be maybe if we're playing into this game environment, Mike Evans in his first game back off that collarbone, targeted 12 times, caught 6 for 132. He historically has done some pretty dirty things to the Panthers, basically kind of gets them for a big game once a year. So we could potentially move to him. Well, we could just move to him and we could keep the Panthers double stack if you wanted. So moving Carter instead of Javonte would give us access to that where we're playing now. Coker, we've got the Bryce double with the Mike Evans bring back. We know we love his skill set, on FanDuel where he racks up touchdowns. He's kind of similar to what Devontae has done with the Rams this season. He just gets so many of those like little short yardage touchdowns where he just bodies people.
Yeah, I really like that play a lot. And then you have your correlation with Carter and Kyle Pitts, kind of a little skinny there for that Atlanta-Arizona game. Mm-hmm. So that's almost like a complete encapsulation of the 3-game environments with the double stack bring back, the Gibbs Gainwell Texans defense, and then we have the Pitts Carter. And to your point, Carter, Arizona is always dicey, of course, in the running back room. May have to worry about DeMarcado a little bit. Obviously, monitor his status. But yeah, on the face of it, this early in the week, that's a very creative little switcheroo. And I'm digging the prospects of this early on here.
Yeah, and the thing with I think the one thing that for people to take away too, or to like quickly talk about here is like just accounting for game environments and trying to play like one piece from each side. I think it's a bit of a crutch people use sometimes, and it isn't always as clean as you think, where it's just like play one player from each side. It's how do those players and what they do and how they're used correlate. So like Jahmyr Gibbs, looking at him, you look at, and he's kind of alternated. So, over their last, his first real explosion this year was that Bucs game, that Monday night before their bye. And he's kind of gone, so he's gone every other week since then of having over 30 points. Actually over let me pull it up. He went 38, 4, 39, 20, 52, 10, 33, 7. So I don't, that's just random that it's going every other week. That doesn't mean he for sure is going to hit here. But the bigger picture there is those games, they won 24-9 over the Bucs. That was a 15-point win. All of his big games have been in their wins. They've been 4-4 over their last 8 games. His big games have correlated exactly with their wins. So if you're betting on Gibbs having a big game, which you have to be if he's 9,500 and you're putting him in your roster, you're betting on the Lions. Their point totals in those games were 24, 44, 34, 44. So you're betting on them scoring like 30 plus points. Well, if they're doing that, the Steelers are playing from behind. And we talked about Gainwell. It's not just his salary, but also how he's been used. You look at the last 5 weeks, 8, 6, 3, 7, 7 targets. So, there's a really strong chance in that game script. He's seen 6 to 9 targets. We know they're not afraid to use him at the goal line. We know he'll get 10 to 14 carries probably. So, it just fits kind of perfectly, those two correlating and how their teams use them. It's not just simply, okay, like we have a piece of each side. Kind of the same with the core stack as well, that Bryce Young double stack. If you're betting on a young double stack, Chris Godwin at his price could have 5 for 65 and a touchdown. And that's a really good game for his price where like you're fine with having played him, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything for the game environment. Whereas Mike Evans, if he is doing what we expect him to do at his salary, the Bucs are probably scoring upwards of 30 points, and that's the exact game script where Bryce Young is actually having to throw the ball more, throw it 30 to 40 times. And that's what we're looking for if we're going to get that outlier scenario from him. Looking at his game logs, he had the one game against the Rams, didn't have that many pass attempts, but the team scored 31 points. But then otherwise, his big games against Atlanta, he had 45 pass attempts, and against Arizona early in the season, he had 55 pass attempts. Those were his only games over 20 points. So we're betting on him getting over 20 points again, carrying multiple pass catchers. It's going to need to be a game where the Panthers are forced to throw, forced to score a lot. And again, Mike Evans is going to be an engine to that sort of game script. So again, it's not just, okay, play a guy from this side, play a guy from that side. And, I'm correlating. Why isn't it working? Like, it's who are you correlating? Does the story actually match? So yeah, I got to be honest. I was a little shaky when we started, and you threw out the Carolina double stack, but I've come around to it.
Well put. As far as it's not just about a generic, just general theory. Let me do one side of each game. I mean, like for instance, the Jaguars-Jets game. If you would have just bet on the Jaguars offense, you're not doing a bring back there. You're betting on the team total and the Jaguars putting up a lot of points and building accordingly. In this case, I mean, you look at that Steelers-Lions game, it's a 52-point game total. And if the Steelers are trailing, it makes sense that, especially if you're doing, opposing running backs, well, that's probably the running back that will be utilized more coming from behind. And then, of course, the Lions are in a situation not only just being at home, but their playoff hopes are on the line. I mean, they're out of the picture at the moment, I think. So they have to win and kind of keep their foot on the gas, which is Campbell's mantra anyway. And Gibbs, is the engine of that offense, even though that they have pieces that they have an overall great offense. But yeah, it's the way the game is going to play out to even dictate the correlation if you're going to correlate. So yeah, that's well said.
Yeah. Awesome. So for those of you listening on the podcast feed, want to walk through our build here quickly. We've got a Bryce Young double stack with Teteroa McMillan and Jalen Coker. Mike Evans bring back. We have Michael Carter, Cardinals running back, correlated with tight end Kyle Pitts coming off his massive game. The game that I knew was going to happen. I was just like 4 years early on it. And then we have the Steelers and Lions, essentially a playoff game in the late window. Kenneth Gainwell and Jahmyr Gibbs. Of course, both of those games, the Atlanta-Arizona game and the Pittsburgh-Detroit game, are in the late window, as is our defense. The Houston Texans defense, who any lineup I build this week is going to have to prove to me a damn good reason on why I should not play them. Because it is poor Kenny Pickett.
Especially on Fanduel.
Yeah, for sure.
Equation. Yeah, I'm with you. When I was first thinking about building, I was like, I'm thinking more probably for once, don't know if it would be in my 5-entry max, could be, but definitely more of a tournament, maybe towards a larger field type contest. This is, at least you're building in some game environments that you want to attack this week in a way that, regardless of if ownership's going to matter or not, as far as these type of players, I think it's a creative build. So yeah, I'm with you. I was kind of like, Bryce Young is definitely a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde guy, but division's on the line. We'll see what happens with it. For
sure. Yeah. So fun build, a fun week. It was good to be back on air with you. Good to get some positive vibes out in the Twitter sphere and on YouTube. Once again, check us out. Join our FanDuel bottom-up build. The link is in the description on YouTube. Check us out, oneweekseason.com. Code OWS65 gets you 65% off the rest of the season. The Bink Machine, only $39 rest of the season through the Super Bowl. Don't need a code for that one. I am Mike. He is Max. We are 1 week season. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on Discord. We'll see you on Twitter. We will see you at the top of the leaderboards. Peace.
1 week season.